So, hello and welcome to the third episode of A Podcast Remastered. My name is JS90 and this is my co-host Z's Twitching.
How's it going?
There you go. This podcast will be all about Amy Hennig and God of War. We're going to talk about a few different articles that we have related to the gaming industry, current events in there, and also the new upcoming God of War for PS4. So, as always, we'll begin with what have we been playing for the last month. You want to start? Because it's been a month since we've done this, since the last episode.
Yeah. So last time I did the podcast, I was currently playing Horizon, and by now I've platinumed the game, so that's been nice. I also started playing a game called Axiom Verge, which is a Metroid-inspired indie title, which was developed by solely one developer, and it was a really cool, interesting, and fun experience. And now, I'm playing Metal Gear Survive, which has released with a lot of controversy in regards to Kojima, Konami, and just the overall status of the Metal Gear franchise. But I'm enjoying it. I'm really liking it, and it's an addictive game. And yeah, that's what I've been playing.
The that indie game, is that on PS4?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And for Horizon, you get a theme for platinuming it, right? At least I think you do. Did you get that?
Holy crap! Yes, I never even checked it. Like it's on the PS4. Like I could download it.
Yeah. Oh, you should get that. Because not everyone has it, right? Gotta have that exclusive stuff. Okay, so what I've been playing is I got back into Destiny 2 after taking a break from it. I think if you might remember episode 2, I was talking about some of the disappointments and concerns I had with the game, and yeah, I was taking a break from it. But since the new year started, they've really been turning things around. Like they've been like it's like some of the best communication I've ever seen from a developer to the fans and everything. Like they before, like I think the last patch launched, right? They were like, hey, just as a heads up, there's a glitch. We know about this. This is how we plan to fix it. This is when we plan to fix it. But just so you know, this glitch is here, so look out for that. Like I've never seen a developer do something like that. They try to hide glitches and stuff and just kind of stealth patch them, right? They don't want to. Like that's how I usually see developers do it, right? Like they don't want to admit. Like, I mean, I kind of get it too. Like, you don't want to admit your mistakes, and you don't want to say that there's a fault with your product, right? Right. So they kind of just want to hope people don't notice and fix it before it becomes a problem. But they've just been straight up with people. They're like, yeah, they're like, this is a problem. This is how we're going to fix it. This is when we will fix it. And then they made like an entire roadmap for like, I think up until May, like all of the features that they plan to add to the game and everything like that. And it's just, it looks, I think the outlook looks like really good for Destiny right now. Of course, a lot of people are saying, that it's too late. But, I mean, for me, I'm all right with it. I think I'm still having fun with the game regularly and everything. So yeah, because I got back into Destiny 2, I kind of put Mass Effect Andromeda on hold. I got to get back into that. Several other PS4 games I need to play, man, like PlayStation Plus games, whole bunch of them. PC games, dude, I have too many PC games, man, and just no time to play them. I have like my Steam library has like 15 to 20 titles already. Wow. And this is like I just began PC gaming a few months ago, right? So it's that case with not enough time to play all your games. But yeah, that's what we've been playing, and I see AJ's here. Welcome, man.
How's it going, AJ?
So first topic is all about Amy Hennig. For those of you guys that don't know who Amy Hennig is, she is the creator of the Uncharted franchise. Uncharted 1 was created by her. The characters of Nathan Drake, Elena, Sully, all Chloe, everyone, that was all created by her. That was her vision from the beginning. And I just realized I forgot to change the stream title. I'm an idiot. This is the most unprofessional podcast.
It's okay.
Just okay. Keep talking about Amy Hennig while I fix this.
Right. What? So like just a general overview, or just what?
Yeah, an overview. Her no, just an overview what she's done.
So
Her.
just a general overview. Okay. Yeah. So Amy Hennig was, I mean, widely directing the first 3 Uncharted games with Naughty Dog. She was a story director, and after Uncharted 3, during the development of Uncharted 4, of course, there's just a lot of conflicts, I guess, with the story team, I suppose, and they just weren't seeing eye to eye, I guess. And Amy Hennig announced her departure from Naughty Dog, and ever since then, Neil Druckmann kind of took the helm, obviously, to direct Uncharted 4, Thief's End, and Jess even brought this up before that not a lot of people are a big fan of that, but long story short, the game turned out pretty fine. But Amy Hennig, ever since, she's joined Visceral Games, and she had been developing a Star Wars game, published by EA, I believe. And she'd been working on that for a long time. And recently, I don't know, I'm sure you folks have heard that Visceral Games' studio has been shut down. Either that or like the project itself had been shut down. And of course, it's frustrating Amy Hennig, as would any lead developer, because they put all their time and effort into developing this game, and it's just a shame that it wouldn't be kind of shown to the public. And it's interesting. EA's response to why they shut down the Star Wars project is because they literally said this, like not word for word, but the general consensus of it was they shut down the project, the single player project, because they believe that there is more of a broader gaming market in multiplayer games. There's more attraction, there's more money to be made, and people do not care about single player experiences anymore. It's all about multiplayer. And that was just kind of like that was that.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so that's a brief overview of what she's done in the past. So yeah, like Uncharted 4, there were some kind of tensions in Naughty Dog. She left Naughty Dog, she went to EA's Visceral Games, and unfortunately, EA closed down Visceral Games as well. And yeah, like going on with the point that you said, that was one of the concerns that, like, the first thing we're gonna talk about regarding Amy Hennig is there was an interview she did with one of the developers of Firewatch, which is one of those like linear point and click type of games. It's also story driven, so that's why they were having sort of a discussion about it. And one of the points she brought up was that pretty much the death of linear story driven games. And it's like the thing is, like, many developers, they seem to be favoring like more open world games, less focused on like an intimate story, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like the thing is, another thing that Amy Hennig brought up is she thinks one of the reasons that these linear story driven games are not doing as well is because she seems to think that a lot of people aren't buying these types of linear games. A lot of people are instead just looking for streams to watch people play these games, or looking for YouTube videos on playthroughs for this type of stuff, right? So I mean, that's, I don't know, I think, like, I mean, I kind of get what she's going at with that, but it's hard to say, because I feel like it's a small percentage of people that are doing this. I feel like the majority of people still want to play a game. They're not, like, I don't think that most people are looking forward to a game to watch someone else play it, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, and I absolutely agree with all that.
Yeah.
It's just going back to what you're saying about how most games this generation, they don't necessarily care about single player experiences and all that. Like I feel that like these developers, like you have these next gen consoles, and they think to themselves, man, look at all this potential that we didn't have on previous gen, being PS3, 360, and stuff. And now it's like you have all this not manpower, but you have all this power, this console power, and all these resources. It's like, okay, let's see how much of this we can take advantage of. And of course, open world games, there's so much stuff that you can do. And I feel like developers are really just they just don't believe that people don't like playing story-based games. They like playing games with a lot of content. And that's the thing with open world games too. Like when you think from a developer standpoint and a business standpoint, open world games last longer and they sell, obviously. Aside from the selling aspect, they just, like, the lifespan of an open world game lasts a lot longer than a single player game, right? Yeah, that's that. That's what I'd say.
Just quickly, you're gonna say hello to Lara Hannacroft and Geotic. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
And yeah, I mean, see, the thing is, right? You can have open world games that are done right, and then open world games that are done wrong. Whereas, like, I mean, there's some games that they just kind of just push an open world, and you can really tell when it's not really detailed or anything like that. They're kind of just pushing it just to call it an open world game, right? Just so that it sells. And you're right in the sense that, like, a lot of people, they would favor, and this is myself included, because I like to look at how much gameplay value I can get out of a particular game that I buy, right? And the way I look at it, like, a lot of open world games, right, they give you way more gameplay hours out of it, right, as opposed to, let's say, a linear game. Now, when it comes to, like, linear story-based games, right, like, they're good if they have replayability, but if they don't, then I don't really know what to say on that, right? Because if it's like, you know, if I'm only playing the game for 6 hours and I paid $60 for it, well, in Canada we're paying $80 for new games, right? So it's like, if I'm just playing it for that 6 hours and that's it, that doesn't really feel like it was a good investment, right?
Yeah.
Like in my opinion, I think, like, for any given game that you buy, you should get at least 30 hours of gameplay out of it. Like, whether that's replaying the story for whatever reason, multiplayer, anything. You should spend at least $30 hours on that game to get it, you know, that $80 value out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel that, like, even with single player games, like, and I mean, trophies and achievements definitely make a huge difference with that, because, you know, a lot of people definitely like collecting the like the side trophies, achievements, and even, like, in-game stuff. And along with another reason too, like with story-driven games, like I mean, with open world games, you can come to single-player games. I find single-player games definitely have a lot more detail in their games. Sorry about that sound.
Yeah, no worries.
Single-player games have a lot more detail in the games because, like, you can focus on the finer details, right? Because there isn't, like, this whole world you have to worry about where you have all these assets that are happening all at once. Whereas, like, I mean, open-world games definitely look good, but they can only look so good. Like they can only look so good. Like, if you compare Uncharted 4 to, say, GTA 5, I think it's fair to say Uncharted 4 is a better looking game. I think it's, like, the best looking game on consoles to date, I believe. That's, like, with that being said, I find that like, in games in general, there's just a lot of, like, there's a high amount of detail that, as gamers, that we've kind of come to expect.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you're quite a bit limited more on how much you know, how good you can make the visuals look if it is an open world game as well, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, you have to maintain, like, you know, a frame rate and everything, right? And
Mm-hmm.
when you have like too many things loading all at once in an open world game, you kind of have to tone back the visuals on it, right? So that's the thing, like, the type of visuals that say like Naughty Dog do, they can do them because they're linear games, right?
Yeah.
And if it's an open world game, you know, they're probably not going to look as good, right?
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but yeah, we kind of went off on a bit of a tangent there. Back to Amy Hennig. So, like that's one of the things. Like she has a concern with, making these linear story-driven games because she's, I suppose, wondering if it's like, because a lot of like the upper management in a lot of these gaming companies, right? Like they don't really want that, right? They don't want these linear story-driven games because it's not making enough money, right?
Yeah.
And for whatever reason it is, right? It's like that's the thing she says is she says that like she sees that the fans are saying that that, oh, why are you canceling these linear games? This is what we want, right? But the truth of it is, like, people have to be buying these games, right? Like, in
Yeah.
order for it to do well, right? I mean, I think it sort of goes back to the vote with your wallet kind of thing, right? Like, if you want those kind
Yes.
of games, you have to be buying them, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there'll always be a place for those types of games. It's just like I don't think they'll ever completely die out because I mean that's something that Neil Druckmann also said, I think, in a recent like interview or something. He said, yeah, Naughty Dog will always make linear story driven games no matter what, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So like I don't think they'll ever die out in a sense, but it is what it is. And like one of the things like Amy Hennig said, as I mentioned, was she seems to think that a lot of people, rather than playing the game on their own, they seem to want to watch a stream
Yeah.
of it and stuff, right? And I feel like that's not true for something like Uncharted or Last of Us or something like that, because
Mm-hmm.
those have like excellent gameplay and they're very gameplay focused regardless, right? Now I could maybe say that for something like say like Heavy Rain, Until Dawn, uh, stuff like that, because those aren't really gameplay focused at all, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for those kind of things, yeah, I get it. Like, you can still watch a playthrough and get the same experience. Um, but yeah, overall, I mean, I don't think linear story-based games are going anywhere.
Yeah.
And another thing she talked about was, I suppose, the level of detail that gamers have come to expect. Um,
Yeah.
like it's like another thing, like you were saying, with the visuals and everything, right? And she brought up an interesting point regarding characters, right? Because it's like whenever you see like a big like AAA budget game, right? Um, like for it to be a good story, right? You're gonna expect a good variety of characters, right? Like that's pretty much what you want from it, right? But one of the interesting examples she brought up was the game Hellblade, right? It got some recent success, and what happened was or sorry, what she mentioned was that game only had one character, right? And it's like what she was saying was, the level of detail they put into that one character, right? They have to do that for several others, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
an Uncharted story typically has like what, maybe like 4 to 5 main characters, 2 to 3 villains, right? And they have to
Yeah.
have that level of detail for every single character, right? That sort of thing. So
Right. Right.
so it's like you always have to achieve this kind of balance, I suppose, between like, because you need to know like how many characters you need to make a good story, what people will expect, and everything, right? And the Firewatch guy, he's from the indie side of development, right?
Right.
And he said like the game he makes, right? Like because like she was saying this in reference to the canceled Star Wars game that she was making, and she was saying how, and sorry, he said to her that because this is a Star Wars franchise, people are gonna expect a lot of characters because that's something they've come to expect from that franchise, right?
Yes.
So whether she wants to or not, she has to include, a huge variety of characters in that story to make it into a good story. Whereas he says for his game, because it's an indie game, it's a new franchise and everything, he can do, whatever he wants in order to make a good story. He can make a great story about just two people, right?
Right.
So it's like it's a bit more on the I suppose the freedom that indie has as opposed to AAA.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Like, I even like, would you say linear games are more in depth when it comes to story than open world games? Because like, there's been open world games where I have played that have a really in depth story.
Yeah.
But I still like so heartily believe that you just can't get that same story in depth experience as you would through a single like a linear based game.
Let me just read the comment Ark said first. Take Injustice 2, for example, it's not an open world game. Fairly straightforward in gameplay. There's a lot of replayability with it in online, multiverse, lots of gear customizations, and a lot of characters, including DLC. Yeah, I mean, it can be whatever it is. Like I said, it's just you should get a lot of gameplay hours out of it, right? Whether it's replaying the single player, whether it's multiplayer, whether it's trophies, whatever it is, you should get a good amount of gameplay hours out of any given game, right?
Right.
And now going back to your question about so you're saying like how good of a story can be made with like open world versus linear, right?
Yeah, like do you basically or anybody like do any of you believe that like single player games are like better told in a linear fashion or open world?
Okay, I think it takes the right developer to do it, right? Because I will say this, okay, and I think maybe some people will disagree with me, maybe some will agree. I'm not sure what you'll say to this, but The Last of Us, right, is the most awarded game of all time, and it had an amazing single player. We all loved it. But I think Red Dead Redemption is a better story than Last of Us, and that's an open world game. Like, what do you think about that?
No, it's interesting. Like I was just talking to my cousin Fearless Beast. He just started playing Red Dead Redemption, PlayStation Now, and I was just telling him that the story for Red Dead Redemption is easily one of the best story-based games that we've had in a while. And you know what? I'm just thinking about that because they're both really good stories.
Yeah.
Because what makes them so good is not the set pieces or the action sequences or the gameplays, but like the
character interactions, right?
The character interactions and the character development, right? How exposed you are to the characters you get involved with and you play as, and you literally experience this journey with them through this third person experience, right? Like Joel and Ellie's story was a really tragic one. John Marston's story was it was just over the roof, man. It was just incredible throughout, and especially with the way that the game ended. Of course, you can't say anything for people.
No spoilers.
Red Dead Redemption.
Okay, hold on. If you haven't played Red Dead Redemption, what the hell are you doing with your life? Go buy it right now. Go play it. It's amazing. Anyways, carry on.
That being said, like,
yeah.
You know what? I would have to agree with you that Red Dead Redemption is a better story than The Last of Us, and reason being is because you meet so many characters and you go through this experience with John Marston, and literally by the end of it, you've grown an emotional attachment to the character.
Yeah.
And it's like you've been through everything this guy's been through, and you know his history, and
Yeah, and I mean, like you achieve the same thing with Last of Us as well, right? Because like when you first start out, right? Because a lot of people have said like the beginning sequence of Last of Us made them cry. To me, it never did because I didn't know who this guy was. I don't really have any sort of attachment to him. But you know what it is? In the second playthrough, that's when you feel emotional about it because you know all the events he's about to go through, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's that sort of thing, right? So you get that same sort of experience by the time you get to the end of Last of Us as well. And you know, both of these games have like amazing gameplay, great like beautifully crafted story and characters and everything like that, right? And those are truly like amazing gaming experiences, right? But the key difference is one is done in an open world setting, the other is done in a linear setting, right?
Yeah.
So I think it just shows like it just takes the right developer to do it because I mean like Rockstar is the king of open world games, right? Like they know how to make a really good open world. Like even their open world feels like, you know, a character in itself. Like I know that doesn't really make sense, but like it feels like the worlds they make feel very alive, right?
Right.
And they feel very much a part of the story and everything, right? Like, you know, it's like you know, the Red Dead Redemption's world, it kind of invoked like, you know, a feeling like I was like, man, I wish I could live in this time, you know, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? So I feel like when, you know, when you do something like that, that's when you've done it right, you know. And like you know, there's like a couple of other like open world games that have made me feel that way too, like Assassin's Creed 2 made me feel that way. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, those are my two favorite Assassin's Creed like story games, right? Like
Yeah.
those made me feel that way. Even recently I played Assassin's Creed Syndicate a few months ago, like even that gave me a bit of that kind of feeling, right? So yeah, it takes the right developer, I think, with, you know,
For sure.
to make the right game. I don't think one is superior to the other for storytelling. It just, I think it sort of just depends on how it's done, really.
I hear you. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And Laura asks, "How am I doing?" I'm doing all right, Laura. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're enjoying this. Okay. What else do we have to say about? Okay, I mean the interview with the Firewatch guy, like that was like they were kind of going back and forth about you know, these kind of different points. We've covered some of them, but it's a really long article. Just
Yeah.
look it up if you want all the points. But I mean that's sort of the thing. Like Amy Hennig was providing the AAA perspective from it, while the Firewatch guy. See, I keep calling him Firewatch guy. What's his name? Let me just see.
Sean
Sean
something, no?
Sean Veneman. That's his name. Okay.
Okay.
Sean Veneman. He's providing it from the indie side. So you know, it's a really interesting discussion. And just one more follow-up point I wanted to bring up regarding Amy Hennig is the original Uncharted 4 story. So I think Z mentioned this earlier, but yeah. So what happened with Uncharted 4 was she was initially the head of the project, and because there were some disputes, I think it was the like the upper management in Naughty Dog didn't quite agree with the direction she wanted to take Uncharted. Uncharted 4, and because they wanted something different, because I think the reasoning was she was doing essentially the same thing that she'd already done with Uncharted 2 and 3, right?
Yeah.
Based on the story, whereas they felt that after The Last of Us, they're capable of like more in terms of storytelling, right? And they wanted her to incorporate those elements into it, but you know, she didn't like that, right? And
Yeah.
that sort of disagreement happened, and Neil Druckmann and Bruce Straley, who are the heads of The Last of Us, took over the project, right? And this was met with a lot of criticism from the fans. Like I still remember, like there was a lot of people that they just didn't like Neil Druckmann at all. Like they didn't want him heading the Uncharted project because, you know, because I feel like a lot of these people, they're kind of Uncharted fanboys too, because
Yeah.
they because they couldn't appreciate The Last of Us for what it was, right? And they felt that he would, I mean, quote unquote, ruin Uncharted 4's story
Right.
with his Last of Us thinking. And I kind of get that because, like, like it would, like, okay, see, I can't say this without spoiling, but a lot of people were, were, I guess, afraid that he would kill off Nathan Drake, right? Or
Yeah.
some other important character or something like that, because of it's a much more like darker tone, which is in his way of thinking, because he's coming from Last of Us, right?
Right.
So like I kind of get that, like you don't want these characters to just be killed off, right?
Yeah.
Because that's another thing, right? Like Amy Hennig's vision for Uncharted has always been Uncharted should always be a happy ending for her, right?
Yes.
So like she's openly said this too, like the good guys and the bad guys fight, the good guys win. That's always been her sort of vision for it, right?
Right.
And like for those of you that have played Uncharted 4, you know that it doesn't stray too much away from that, but it is a much deeper story, right? Focusing on character relationships, whereas I feel like the previous Uncharted's didn't have enough of that. Uncharted 4 had a lot more, right? And I mean, I've said this before, like I think Uncharted 4's story is my favorite out of all of the Uncharted franchise too. Just slightly beating out Uncharted 2.
Yeah.
Because I know the majority of people do say that Uncharted 2 is their favorite, and because of that, right? I can see why they favor Amy Hennig so much, right? Because she was in charge of that project, right? But another thing you have to keep in mind is, right, although she did that, she also came out with Uncharted 3. And in my opinion, I think Uncharted 3 was the worst out of the entire franchise, right? So, like
And not
it's
to
hard to
that
say, yeah.
Uncharted, yeah, not to say that Uncharted 3 was a bad game.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's just if you were to rank everything, something has to end up being the worst, right?
Yeah.
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 So, it's I mean, I personally, I was very happy with the way Uncharted 4 turned out. And if you didn't know what Amy Hennig's original vision for Uncharted 4 was, that the character Sam is the villain. And in the version that we got, he was actually he was a main character, a main supporting character. Pretty much probably the most important supporting character, since the entire story did revolve around him. And me personally, I really liked Sam as a character, like in the way that we got him. Like I don't think I would have liked him as a villain, because I really liked him as a hero and supporting character, because I felt like he was a very relatable character to me personally.
Right.
And yeah, just like the qualities of him, of how he's very much like Nathan Drake, but he's like Nathan Drake who hasn't experienced all the the complications and the danger of treasure hunting, right? So it's like it kind of, I don't know what it is. It's like when I looked at Sam, it really reminded me of like Drake in like Uncharted 2 and stuff like that, because at that time he didn't really care, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean, right? So it
Yes.
kind of takes you back to that, because he was like really reckless. He only cared about the treasure, that sort of thing, right? And I suppose he's like I guess he's a very misunderstood character in a sense as well, because a lot of the other characters scold him for that kind of behavior, right? But
Yeah.
like, and we also find out in Uncharted 4 why the Drake brothers are so passionate for treasure hunting and everything, and I thought that was really, really well done, right? It's very believable, and a lot of it makes sense. And yeah, just even like what do you think? Like, what would you have preferred? Like the way we got Uncharted 4, or would you have been more interested to see how Sam would have been as a villain?
Like, I generally, I like how Uncharted 4 ended. I think Naughty Dog really ended the Uncharted franchise on a really positive note, and couldn't have asked for anything more. The only complaint that I had was because the game didn't have many set pieces, but at the end of the day, it's not what Uncharted
Mm-hmm.
needed. Because Uncharted is known for the experience, the set pieces,
Yeah.
but I don't think for Uncharted 4 being the last game, I think it needed a proper story oriented, narrative driven ending. And
Mm.
with that being said, in the originally, because I was kind of glad that Neil Druckmann took over, and I was hoping that like the story of Uncharted would take a more darker turn, because
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping that, I was hoping that Uncharted would take a more darker turn, because obviously Neil Druckmann coming over to The Last of Us, and I thought that like that's what the story needed.
Mm.
But then looking back on it, like at the end of the day, Uncharted 4 was always a story about, not happiness, but it was always uh,
Lighthearted.
a lighthearted, exactly. It's a
Yeah.
lighthearted experience, right? And it wouldn't make sense for them just to kind of end this franchise on a really depressing note,
Yeah.
or a very dark note, because that'd
Mm.
be very uncommon for a lot of the fans. I'm
Yeah.
glad Uncharted turned out the way what it did.
Yeah.
And if Sam was a villain, I'm actually glad that he was more of a brother, because again, like him being the villain,
Mm.
that would have definitely have led to a darker ending for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you're killing your own brother, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been pretty bad.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, like for me, I didn't necessarily want it to be more darker. I just wanted it to be different to the previous Uncharted's, right? Because it's like, we're going into a new generation with PS4, right? We want to see something different. We don't want to just see Uncharted 3.5. You know what I mean? Right?
yeah,
So it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm overall glad with the way they handled things, and everything was very different. And just a quick note about something you said about the lack of set pieces, right? I
yeah,
think I think what they've kind of learned to do is the set pieces are kind of blended in with the gameplay. You know what I mean? Like the entire Madagascar truck chase sort of thing, right?
yeah.
That is essentially a set, like the sort of cinematic style that the set pieces always had, but it's
Right,
blended in with the gameplay too, and I think I like that better, like where you have control over it. You know what I mean?
right. Okay, yeah, I see what
Yeah.
you're saying. Yeah,
So I think that's just an evolution of the sort of gameplay that they do now, right? At Naughty Dog, and I think that's what we could probably expect more of from, say, The Last of Us 2 and whatever future games that they make as well. Um, yeah, I mean that's a bit of a discussion about Amy Hennig. We'll
mm-hmm.
move on to a couple of other smaller topics. We'll quickly address these, and then we're going to talk a bit about God of War.
Awesome.
Okay. Uh, First thing is there was an article called "The Troubles," or sorry, let me get that right title. The hidden emotional toll that comes with a career in video games.
Mm-hmm.
So what this is focusing on is basically a lot of developers have received a lot of harassment, threats, and abuse by the fans. Um, and this has happened, for a number of reasons. Like if some of the fans didn't like, say, a particular feature that was in the game, or they didn't enjoy, say they think a game is unbalanced, or something like that, right? Or microtransactions. That was another thing, right? Uh,
Yes.
yeah. Now, I feel like there's a like there's a pretty clear line that you should know that you're crossing when you're giving feedback. Like I feel like, okay, if you want to give feedback to a developer, you want something improved, right? I mean, the reason like you're so passionate about it is because you do care about the game, right?
Yes.
But being disrespectful isn't going to get you anywhere, right? Like you can't just be like, "Oh, f you, this studio, I don't like you, I hate the things you do," and all that kind of stuff. They're not going to listen to you. What's the point, of that, right? Like
Yeah.
you have to say, hey, this is what's wrong with the game. This is how we suggest you fix it, and this is what we want, right? Like that's the right way to go about it. But another thing that comes up is some developers aren't very good at listening to their audience, you know? Like so when it comes to that, right? Like they're not very good at communicating with their community. When it reaches that sort of point, um, people get frustrated, right?
Yes.
They're gonna get frustrated. They're gonna get angry. They're gonna swear, and it kind of escalates from there, right? But
Yeah.
where there's a very clear line that you're going over is some, this is it's a small minority of the community, but some people have given death threats to developers.
Oh yeah.
That's very very bad.
Yeah. One
And
recent example I can think of is,
yeah,
I mean, it happens, but notoriously, the guy who made No Man's Sky,
oh
like they delayed the game like a second time, I
yeah,
think, and that's when kind of the threats have been kicking in.
yeah. I mean, see, I was never interested in that game. I didn't think that game would be good at all, and I think it was pretty much a failure, right?
Yeah.
And but I mean, I've never like wished harm or death upon the developers for it, right? It's like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, I get it if like you're upset with the way the game turned out, but you shouldn't be threatening people over that, right?
Oh yeah,
Because
for sure.
you have to look at it from their perspective too, because these developers, they work really hard. Like they put in tons of overtime all the time, right? Into the job that they do, and what happens is like you put in all this hard work into making this game, right? And the fans just say, oh, it's bad, we hate it, we hate you, and that kind of stuff. That's not really good for your health.
Yeah,
When
absolutely
you're
not.
putting in that much effort and you're just basically, people are just trashing on your work, right? Your hard work. Because I mean, a lot of the things you don't like about these games, it's not necessarily the developers that have a say in it. It could just be the upper management, right? This is especially when it comes to microtransactions. I don't think any developer that works, like like any individual developer that works on like actually making the game, right? I don't think they want microtransactions in there, right? It's the upper management, the business people and stuff. They're the ones that are pushing it, the publishers, right? But the developers are the ones that seem to be getting all this hate, though, even though for a lot of
Yes.
these things they have nothing to do with it, right? So like that's the thing. Like one of the things the article was talking about was it's like, is that sort of stress and torment worth the reward, right? The reward for these developers is they work in a creative environment and they get to do exactly what they want, right?
Right.
And that's the thing. Is that worth it? Is that worth having to endure, you know, death threats and all this other kind of stuff from fans, right? That's
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like some developers, they say yes. Some, they just don't think it's worth it, and nobody blames them for that. I don't think anyone wants to have to work a job where you're just constantly, harassed for your work, right? Uh,
Yeah.
no matter no matter what you do. So yeah, I mean it's difficult because I haven't worked in game development, so I don't know exactly how it is, but it's a tough price to pay, I suppose. But
It is. And you
yeah,
know what? Like, it's just, oh man, like, as us gamers, like, I mean, as they should be, but our expectations are set so high because, like, we're coming into next gen and we hear about things that these consoles are capable of. But at the end of the day, it's like you have to understand developers are humans. They need their own time, and they're not robots. Like, they're not slaves to us. And
Yeah.
whatever they make, no matter how a game turns out, you can't blame it on them. Like, you can't hate them for it because
Yeah.
it's their art. Like, they actually put, like, in whatever like way it is to them, they actually put their time, energy, like devotion, dedication, and money into making this game for you. And it's very unfair for you to not give the game a chance and to play it properly and say, hey, like, this game sucks. I just think generally, like, people, like, we're just way over our heads, and like we expect too much, and we're not forgiving, and we're not open for new experiences or any experience at all. And even, like, because I was just going back to the article, one of the guys said that another thing that really bothers people is, like, they also get death threats for, like, adding a certain feature in the game. It's like, listen,
Yeah.
we can just take it out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we can fix it.
Yeah.
There's nothing to just kind of destroy yourself over, but
Yeah.
sorry, to just rage over.
Yeah, yeah. It's, I mean, like, and there are some cases where the community is right, the developers were wrong, but that still doesn't give you the right to threaten them and everything over it, right? Like, I mean, I can say a bit about Destiny 2, right? Because, like I said, there was a lot of community disappointment from the beginning, right? And now is when things are, like, slowly turning around. And the thing is, like, the community is right about the complaints that they made, right? But
Yes.
I feel that, like I said, the actual developers that are actively working on making the game, right? Like, when we look at, say, Bungie as a company, right? Like, there are the developers that are, that are directly working on the game, and then there's, like, the upper management, which is focused on business and finance and dealing with Activision. Activision only cares about the money. That's what publishers care about. They just care about making money. They don't care about anything else, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, I feel like the people that actually work on the game, I feel that they feel exactly how we do. And they've vocally said all of this too, like, because I follow some of the developers on, like, Twitter and stuff, right? And they've openly said that hey, we were wrong about this, and you guys are right, we agree with you, and this is how we're going to fix things, right?
Yeah.
So, like, they feel the same way we do, right? But we don't exactly know what the story was. Maybe they could have been influenced by the upper management to focus more on the microtransactions and stuff like that, right? Because that was a really big concern that the community had, right? It was just way too much focus on the microtransactions rather than the actual content in the game, right?
Yeah.
So it's, we don't know the story behind it, right? But if you want to be heard, you should always be respectful. That's
Absolutely.
the important thing,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, because no, I mean, I imagine no one's really going to take you seriously if you're just going to kind of cuss them
No,
out.
no, you just sound like a baby, like crying over something, right? Like, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna pay
Yeah.
attention to that. Even if you bring up some good points, you have to present them the right way, right? Like, even you could be right about everything you're saying, but if you're just threatening people with it, it's not gonna get you anywhere, right?
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Well said.
Oh, on a positive note, we have an article from CD Projekt Red talking about monetization. So this is just a bit of a follow up to episode 1. We talked about microtransactions.
Yes.
Yeah, a bit of a follow up to that. So we talked quite a bit about the whole EA and Battlefront 2 backlash over microtransactions and all that stuff, right? And if you don't know CD Projekt Red, they're the developers of the Witcher games.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Was that a sneeze?
Yes. Sorry.
Man, my guy. Chill. Anyways, CD Projekt Red, they're the developers of the Witcher games, and like, a lot of people have really praised the way they've handled their game, right? Because it included, I think, two paid expansions, and the rest of the DLC was free, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of people have really praised it. That's a highly praised game as well. I haven't played it yet myself. I do plan to at some point. But yeah, I mean that's a very highly praised game. Their
Amazing.
practices and everything, like nobody's said anything negative about their practices in
Yeah.
any way. And the CEO of CD Projekt Red commented on, I suppose, the current state of you know, gamers and their war against microtransactions and all of that, right? And he said that he thinks that it's something that's very good for the industry, that the
Yes.
community has backlashed against it, right? And it shows that that the industry can change for the better, right? Or at least that's what he hopes. It's what we all hope, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the direct quote that he said was, "If you buy a full-priced game, you should get a big polished piece of content, which gives you many, many hours of fun gameplay." Pretty
Right.
much exactly what we said in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to get many, many hours out of it. To me, I think 30 hours is sufficient, right? Um, and that differs based on people. Like some people are cool with like just 10 hours, right? That's up to them. It's just, but yeah, I mean, you should get a lot of gameplay for your money's worth, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and this is another cool thing he said was, "There's no better PR than a happy gamer recommending your title to their friends." Exactly, that's
Oh
what you
yeah.
want. Yeah,
That's
that's
I
it.
mean that's the best way generally. Like
Yeah,
just kind of like I think I guess it's considered network marketing,
yeah,
where
yeah.
it's like I mean it's just networking. Like that's the best way to like spread a business or a product is word of
Mm,
mouth. That's the
yeah,
best way, especially when your friends are saying, "Listen, you got to play this game," or "Listen,
yeah,
like you got to check this out." It's just the best way to spread things. Versus like I mean nothing wrong with like looking at reviews or hearing from like kind of like the professional standpoint, but
yeah,
like for when a friend says, "Hey, this is awesome. You should play this game or you should check this out." Like there's something special about that. And I feel the Witcher games have definitely spread over the years with that kind of context.
and that's like that's free advertising for them, right? Because
Yes.
because me myself, I didn't know anything about The Witcher before until this game came out and got so much praise. The Witcher 3, that is.
Hmm.
So before The Witcher 3, I didn't even know anything about that franchise at all, right? So I only heard about it after The Witcher 3 and how much praise it got, right? So, it works, right?
Yes.
It,
Oh
it
yeah.
definitely works, right? Because, yeah, like an example is, yeah, I heard about it. Didn't know anything about it. But, I mean, it's nice to see that, uh, you know, developers are agreeing with us and, like we mentioned in the previous episodes, gamers have a voice, right?
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely. And I
if
completely agree with what the developers are saying. Like this is kind of like
mm,
has caused a community kind of
mm,
setback. Well,
yeah,
like it's kind of like strike in the community, in which
mm,
like this will like definitely like push us to move forward. And if I have to say, like, I believe that if you're playing a game that has the loot box system, like I believe if any game has that sort of system, it is doomed to fail. And the reason why that is because, like you want to play a game and like if a game has good gameplay, right? That's one thing, right? But you
mm,
play games to progress, to get better and to unlock better stuff to enhance your gameplay, right?
yeah,
And if all that is locked away in a chest and the only way to earn that is to either actually buy the currency or to grind for that currency, it just doesn't it's just not fun. And
mm,
mind you, like good gameplay can still get boring very easily.
yeah,
So it's very healthy to make sure that these like I guess upgrades or enhancements and expansions are like
mm,
given to the player on a healthier kind of like timeline, not timeline, but like basically at a healthy pace, so that it keeps them playing and engaged.
yeah. It's and see like what AJ just said, to progress while having fun. There's always
Yeah,
a limit,
yeah,
right? Like you want to be like, see, for me, like I don't mind grinding if it's a game with gameplay that I really enjoy. I don't mind the grind, but there's a limit to it, right? There's like
yeah,
some games they can get overly ridiculous, right? And I feel like a lot like feel like there wouldn't be as much backlash if there wasn't the microtransaction option to the grinding, right? Right. If it's just the grind and there's no easy way out by, just buying a loot box or something like that, then like it wouldn't be as negatively looked down upon, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's there's always a fine balance between it, right? And with the whole EA backlash, I guess hopefully we can look forward to more games doing it right, and see the overall community, I guess, satisfied with the games that they're getting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And AJ is going to listen to the podcast again on YouTube. Yes. Quick note: if you didn't know, I upload these podcasts to YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, I stream these on my Twitch channel, and both versions are slightly different. The YouTube version, I do some editing, we add some music and everything, and so watch both if you can. Okay, last topic we're going to talk about is God of War. The new God of War game. Coming to PS4 on...
Stretch for this one.
You gonna what?
Stretch for this one.
Oh, you're gonna stretch? Okay. Yeah, God of War. It's a new God of War game coming to PS4 on April 20th. I
mark that in my calendar.
I still don't know why this isn't called God of War 4. Because this is a continuation, right? So
No,
I don't
well,
know.
actually, this is a reboot to the franchise.
So does that mean that the previous God of War games didn't happen? Like the story?
Well, they did, but this is kind of like a new story arc.
Right.
It's
But,
like a new chapter within, but it's like a separate chapter. It's like another book. Like if this is part of a book series, it's like another book.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I don't know, I'm just curious why it wasn't called God of War 4. Even if it is a new story, right? If the previous events still happened for this game, like, I don't know, I just thought it's a little weird.
Like, you know what though? Yeah, because excuse me. Like, because at the end of God of War 3, of course, I'm not gonna say any spoilers. The whole like story of the God of War games, the past God of War games have told up to the latest point being God of War 3, it just ends on a really heavy cliffhanger. And it's like, oh, like what happened? What happens now, right? And then of course the consensus, the general idea and overview of God is that before they God of War was heavily involved with Greek mythology, but now they're involving with Norse mythology. So Kratos has moved on. It's been a couple of years. He's grown some age, got some wrinkles, got some white hair and everything. And I don't know if it's I guess it's confirmed that he did have a son with whom we're not sure of. Maybe he found a different wife because in the original games, the original story of God, Kratos as a Spartan, he thirsted for more power to eliminate the barbarians, I think, and he made a deal with Ares, the God of War at the time, and he just completely lost all like consciousness and self-control, and he went to attack a village which he believed was the village where the barbarians were held. And I'm going to backtrack. He went to attack a village in which was believed that there were supporters of the barbarians, and he attacked all those people and ended up murdering his wife and child. And ever since, that's why he's been so vengeful to go after the God of War, because of the deal that he made with Ares, and of course of how Ares screwed him over. And with that being said, as the games progress, like the gods have screwed him over more and more and more, and that's what led to kind of the separation between well, actually, now that I said that, the reason why it can't be God of War 4 is literally because I mean, I can't say much, but long story short, in the God of War story, Kratos has killed the majority of the Greek gods. So
Mm,
there's no way that they can go back to Greek mythology. So in a sense, it's good that they're going toward the Norse
yeah.
mythology. So it's like a new chapter in
Mm,
Kratos' journey. Um, but that's that. Sorry.
right. Yeah, I mean, no, regarding the name of it, like, I always felt like God of War is a story about Kratos, not about, which mythology we're in. You know what I mean? Right? Like,
Yes.
so that's why I was wondering why it wasn't called God of War 4, because
Right.
I felt like regardless of which era we're in of mythology, the story is ultimately about Kratos, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I wanted to discuss some of the differences we've seen in this game, or so far from the trailers in this game compared to the previous games. And
Mm.
AJ asked, "Are we playing this day one?" I'd like to. God of War, like when it
I will
launches.
definitely be.
Yeah, I'd like to. So hopefully, we'll see. Um, but okay, first thing is the changes to Kratos, right? Now, if you know Kratos from all of the old games, he was just this very angry man, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
he was just this angry man that wanted to kill everything. And like, even when you play as him, if you just like look at his face, he looks angry. Like when you're just standing
Yeah.
around as and moving around the character, he just has this angry
Right.
face, right?
Right.
So he yeah, he used to be this extremely angry man, and if you know about the story, you know why. Like he's experienced betrayal and everything. That's why he set out to kill all the gods and everything, right?
Yes.
And this is betrayal directly related to his family at the time and everything, right? So it's something that was very personal. You can see why it would invoke so much anger in a father, right? So you know, he was always this angry man, right? But what do we see in him in God of War, this new God of War, in the trailer so far? He's a lot quieter. He's more calm and like he has this I suppose sort of like aged and filled with
Yeah.
wisdom kind of that's the kind of vibe you seem to get from him, right?
Right.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's I mean that to me that seems to, if that is how it is, right? It seems to indicate that we're gonna see changes to the gameplay and changes to the story, right? Because like the previous God of War games pretty much focused on the gameplay. There wasn't really too much on the story side of it, right?
Hmm.
Whereas this seems to be. Let's first talk about the story. Like this seems to be much more of a story-focused game, and it seems to focus a lot on that intimate relationship between him and his son.
Yes.
What's his son's name? It's like
I don't. I mean,
Artreus or something like that, right?
Arteris or yeah. I just call him.
Artreus.
I mean, we all know him as boy.
Boy,
Big boy.
I'm hungry. All right. So, yeah, I mean, like what do you think about that direction of it? Like, do you think it's going to, say, harm the gameplay that we're used to from God of War if it's more focused on the story?
um, like with the gameplay mechanics and the story that they're trying to tell, I think it's all going to blend in perfectly because the whole hack and slash idea of God of War made so much sense because Kratos is, as we said, like established that Kratos is pissed all the time, and
Yeah.
he had all these weapons and this like vast field of arsenal and everything. You just kind of button mash and like you literally just
Mm,
like kind of feel the rage of Kratos as you
yeah.
play. But with that being said, with this kind of new look on Kratos as being that kind of like wiser man full of wisdom, I think it's safe to um play like to design the game in a slower pace setting, but not at the same time don't make it like too slow. Definitely add some combat because God of War is known for its intriguing combat, right? And from the gameplay that we've seen, there's from the vast weapons that we've seen, there are different ways to approaching combat, and of course, like different execution styles, which looks really awesome, if I may
Yeah.
say. I think generally the pacing should be a lot slower this time around,
Yeah.
and with the type of gameplay that they're going for, it makes a lot of sense.
Now the thing is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Oh, sorry, that's a great thing.
Oh, it's a great thing. Okay.
Because it just doesn't make sense to
Yeah.
develop a hack and slash game now, especially considering that like Kratos has no reason to just kind of rage out.
Well, we don't know yet because we haven't played the game. Maybe like
Yeah.
halfway through the game we get old Kratos back, right? We don't know yet.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, but generally speaking, like I think are going for a slower pace approach, and it's refreshing too because not that like don't get me wrong, like, I think everybody was expecting a new God of War. I mean, the hype was real when it was first revealed.
Yeah.
But I think it's just refreshing that God of War is getting like a new overlook of the franchise, because I imagine it would have got pretty old quickly if it's just a hack and slash. It's just adding
Yeah.
variety to it.
Yeah.
So it's good.
I mean, see, like when it comes to the story of it, right? Like how it's becoming a more story focused game. Like if they're going to take it in that direction, they need to do it right. You know,
Yeah.
like because you are essentially sacrificing some of the older gameplay styles that a lot of people really loved, right? To fit sort of this new style of storytelling that they want to do with this new game, right? So it has to be worth it. So they need to do it right, is what I'm saying. And when it comes to the changes in gameplay, it's like you said, like God of War, right? The previous games, right? You were able to just button mash and stuff like that, right? And it fit, I suppose, yeah, like you said, the theme of those games, because it was all about experiencing Kratos' rage and getting these amazing cinematic type of fight sequences and stuff, right? Even though the previous God of War games are pretty challenging if you play them on the hardest difficulty, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it's just like say even on the normal difficulties and stuff, like you're able to just button mash and stuff like that, right? And a lot of people have fun with that because that's just something that's inherently fun. You're just playing as this angry man killing gods. Like that's just fun. Like there's like
Right.
I don't think anyone can say that's not fun. That's just fun to play,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But like with like a slower paced combat, right? Like I think I'd like to see maybe something more focused on say like rather than button mashing and stuff, like maybe you have to make effective uses of your combos, maybe you have to focus on parries and dodging and stuff like that. I think I'd like to see something like that, right, where like
Right.
they kind of force you to do all that kind of stuff, because you can parry and dodge in like God of War 3, right? But it's
Yeah.
like you didn't really have a need to do it, like except for like a few sequences on the hardest difficulty, right? Other than that, you had no need to do any of that kind of stuff, right? But I just think it would be interesting to see that kind of gameplay, say more akin to like Dark Souls and Bloodborne and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because I like that type of gameplay, like so I'd like to see more of that, I think. One other thing to the changes to gameplay that I want to mention is the creative director of God of War. His name is Cory Barlog, right? Yeah, he said he confirmed in, I think it was an interview or something, that this game will not have a jump button.
Yeah.
So the thing is, if you don't have that, that completely takes out all of the aerial combos that you used to do,
Yeah.
right? Like I think you'll still have like platforming and stuff like that, like in the sense that like you can vault over things, like if you go up to a wall he'll climb it and stuff like that, right? But like you can't just like freely jump in the air whenever you want, right? Like that kind of thing, right? So it's like like I mean, how do you feel about that? Because a lot of people have expressed that they don't like that, because I think a lot of people, they enjoyed using aerial combos and things like that, right? as part of the gameplay. But this kind of eliminates that if you don't have a jump button. Like, what do you think about that?
Right. And you know what? I just want to say quickly, like, I mean, personally, well, before I say personally, a lot of people have that issue. Like, they'll ask, like, if I tell them to play a game, they'll say, "Can you jump?" So, like, well, it's like, uh, like, do you need to jump?
Yeah.
Like, is that like a fixation of yours to jump in a game?
Yeah.
But, you know, to each their own, right? Like, for me personally, I could care less if a game, if you're able to jump in a game or not, right? But with that being said, with God of War, like God of sorry, you had the freedom to be able to do aerial combos. So of course you'll do like square, square, triangle, but instead of pressing triangle, you'd hold triangle to knock up players. And while you hold down triangle, as soon as you knock them up, Kratos will automatically like jump up. You wouldn't have to press the jump button. You just jump up to the enemy, and then from there, just do your aerial combos.
Like it's part of the combo. Like,
Right.
yeah, okay.
Right. So I'm thinking, if anything, if the game will feature aerial combos, that will be done. But if the game doesn't have aerial combos, I mean, like I it wouldn't bother me. And even as you said, like Bloodborne, there are no aerial combos. Like it's grounded. It's a grounded combat experience. And if God of War was like that, that wouldn't necessarily be an issue. Because that would just be like, I mean, most games in the market, really. I mean, how many games do you know where you can knock up an enemy in the air and do an aerial combo?
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah, I wouldn't say it would be a problem.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like I said, like, you know, if they're taking that out, then they need to add more to another area of the
Right.
combat, right? So it's like I said, if it's something that focused on like parrying, dodging, and that kind of stuff, I would be cool with that. Like, I would be fine with that. But yeah, I mean, I like, you know, I feel like you can trust, you know, Santa Monica Studio, right? They've done excellent work on the previous God of War games, and Cory Barlog, I think he worked on every God of War game, right? Except Ghost of Sparta or something.
Probably God of War Ascension.
Ascension, yeah.
Or maybe Ghost of Sparta. I'm not sure.
Maybe those two, yeah. Ghost of
I
Sparta
want
and
to say,
Ascension,
like,
I think.
like God of War Ascension is essentially the Uncharted 3 of the Uncharted series. Like,
Yeah.
It's the worst God of War in the series, but necessarily it's not bad. It's not
a bad game, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played Ascension, but that's what I've heard from a lot of people as well. But I mean, like, you know, I feel like the game is in good hands, and we'll just have to wait until it comes out. And just the last point that I want to talk about God of War is about where we think the story will go. And there was something I was thinking about. I want to know what you think about this, right? So, you know how I was saying, like, I always felt like the title of the games of God of War is always about the story of Kratos, right?
Yeah.
You know how this, you know, because this is a reboot, right? And because this is just called God of War, not God of War 4, God of War subtitle, nothing like that, right? It's just God of War, right? So what if the title is referring to the boy, Atreus? What if he's, like, you know, like him being the successor to Kratos, right? Like, like what if it's the story of him, because he's also a demigod, right? Because he's Kratos' son, right? So what if it's, you know, the story about him becoming the next God of War, that kind of thing?
I completely agree with you. Yeah.
You know, we don't even know. What if like Kratos dies halfway through, and then you play the rest of the game as the boy?
Right. I feel like the
Right.
kind of where the story's gonna like go is basically like the game is gonna be about Kratos, you as the player, nurturing this boy into becoming a warrior. And then I'm thinking by near the end of the game, the boy is gonna be given this kind of like, I mean, the pressure is gonna be on the boy, and it's gonna be up to him to kind of take care of business. I just generally believe that Kratos will be killed off, and the boy will take over. But needless to say, like, if not in this game, it'll definitely happen. If this game will become a trilogy, it will happen in either the second game or the third game.
So,
but you're right. Like, I believe that's the direction that the story is taking, because it just doesn't make
Mm-hmm.
sense. Like, we've known Kratos for so long. I mean, what other stories could you
Yeah.
tell with him? I mean, I'm sure, like, because they're throwing in Norse mythology into this
Mm-hmm.
now, and Kratos is literally exposed to a new type of
Yeah.
mythology. But here's the thing: you've played 6 God of War games with Kratos's like adventures,
Yeah.
and I bet you didn't know this, but I'm just gonna say this briefly, okay? I bet you had no idea about this. Knowing Kratos, the kind of guy he is, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Ghost of Sparta is basically about him finding out that he has a brother, and it's
Oh,
you trying
okay.
to rescue your brother.
Right.
So I mean, I bet, like, I mean, you as a person who doesn't really know much
Mm-hmm.
more, but knows that Kratos is like this anger, this vengeance-driven man,
Mm-hmm.
finds out that he has a brother. I mean, you can imagine the reaction. Like, I mean, just
Right.
the emotional toll, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like the fact that like he had no idea about him for all these years, and that was like, I mean, spoiler. Well, actually,
Mm-hmm.
no. Actually, it's not. Well, okay, I'm not going to say that, but it's one of the things that he had found out later on, which
Right.
was kept from him. So I mean, you had 6 God of War games. Okay, Kratos is a beloved character, but I mean, it's tough to say his time is up.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Randy just came into the chat and he's like, "Oh, please no, he doesn't want Kratos to get killed off."
Hey,
Oh man,
EP.
yeah, it's
When you said Randy, there's that
that
one episode of
that
Family Guy. I don't know if
ah
you know what I'm talking about. Randy, the bully. I'm
no,
sorry.
I'm referring to EP Dust. Yeah, I call him Randy.
Gotcha, EP.
Yeah, I mean, no, I get that completely too, but I mean, they can always do it in a way that they don't have to kill him off, but they could make it so that he isn't. See, I don't really know how they would do this, but what I'm referring to is, okay, say like Uncharted 4, right? Nathan Drake's story ended, right? And it ended in a way such that you know that he's not going to go back on these crazy adventures and all that kind of stuff because, something happens in the end which requires him to not get himself killed, right? That's all I'm going to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, because of that, right? So, they did that in such a way so that, he hasn't been killed off, but he's not going to return for these crazy adventures. Maybe someone else will in Uncharted 4, which if you played to the end of it, you'll see
Yeah.
who could kind of follow up on his story, on the Uncharted. If there's future Uncharted games, who could follow
Which I
up on
want to
that?
say, I hope they don't go with that approach,
Mm-hmm.
because I think Uncharted ended off really well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but God of War is different because this is a reboot to the
Mm-hmm.
franchise.
Well, I mean,
But
that's what I'm saying. Like for Uncharted, like if like let's say maybe 5-6 years down the line, there's a reboot of Uncharted. It'll focus on a new character, which was introduced at the end of
I
Uncharted.
see.
You know who I'm talking about,
Right,
right?
right.
Carrying on the legacy of Nathan Drake and all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And EP says like no, more like play as a kid for the last half of the game. Yeah, that's
Oh.
true because you don't want it to be like The Last of Us. And with that being said, like Kratos is superior, so I think majority of the game you're is Kratos, or if anything, you're gonna play as Kratos.
Well, I mean, here's another thing, right? We don't know the timeline of the game yet either. So, it could be like, let's say if we were to play as his son, right? It could like several years could pass by the time we get to that point, and maybe he's like a young adult, right? Like maybe he's like, maybe like a 19, 20-year old. I wouldn't mind playing
Yeah.
as him if at that point, right? Like I guess we don't necessarily have to play as him as a boy because we don't really know, suppose, the timeline of everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Make him ride off into the sunset. Didn't Kratos destroy the sun? I don't think there's a sunset anymore. Yeah, he killed what's his name, Helios. So there's no sun anymore.
Right.
He freaking ripped his head off and used it as a flashlight. So
Oh man.
no more sunset.
Yeah.
Killing the
Plus, yeah.
Yeah, killing the
Sorry.
main. Sorry, killing the main character is a ballsy move not many developers dare to make in fear of losing their fans.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, And like that's the thing. I mean, if they can craft the story in such a way that they don't have to kill him off, and rather they can, uh, you know, just make it in such a way that he won't be doing what he does anymore, right?
Right.
I'm not really sure how they can do that in God of War context, but I mean, I don't know. It's just a thought that I had. Like, what if the title and everything is referring to the boy, and him being brought up to be the next God of War, right?
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Because like it just seems a little odd that it doesn't even have like a subtitle, right? It's not even like God of War, the Revenge, and I don't know, something Norse, whatever.
Right.
It doesn't have any sort of subtitle, nothing. It's just called God of War, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it just seems a little odd to me, but
Right.
I don't know. I mean, like hopefully if it does take that direction, hopefully it's done in a nice way, so we don't have to play as an annoying mouthy little kid, and
Yeah.
we don't see beloved Kratos killed off, and hopefully we get a good story that doesn't sacrifice too many gameplay elements. And if gameplay elements are sacrificed, we'd like to see new additions to the gameplay, right?
You
To
know
keep
what
it
though?
just
Like,
as
I
good.
mean, Santa Monica Studios always delivers no matter what game they make. So I'm quite
Mm-hmm.
confident that no matter how they make this new God of War, I'm
Yeah.
sure people will enjoy it.
The only thing that has Santa Monica's name that I didn't enjoy was the Order 1886. They weren't the developers, but I think like they helped with the development and they published it or something like that. But that game's
No,
trash.
let me see. Let me see. One second. I have the game.
They have their name on it. I don't know. I forgot why.
Yeah, Ready at Dawn.
Ready at Dawn is the developer, but Santa Monica's name is on it for some reason. Let me see.
I believe they published it. No,
Yeah, they published it, I think.
I don't know.
Oh no, they're listed also like beside Ready at Dawn for development.
Fun fact. When you brought the Order 1886, as I looked
Mm.
at the box art in case for this film,
This film.
the director who directed the Order 1886 actually directed God of War Ghost of Sparta, and I don't think. I mean, you can argue that God of War Ghost of Sparta, in terms of story, had the best story in the God of War franchise. Like story in the sense of like narrative,
Yeah.
and that's why like I knew that this game was going to be very. I mean, I was really looking forward to the Order. I just think, just a quick note on the Order. I think it had a lot of potential, but it just felt rushed.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean,
Probably.
I mean the see, I could like I don't want to start going off on a rant about the Order 1886, but I mean like it's cool like if they want to make a game like that, but if you want to make a game like that succeed, it has to have an amazing story, and I thought the story was garbage for the Order, right? So it's like, if you're sacrificing like gameplay elements and all sorts of things to make, so more of a story driven game, right? A linear story driven game has to have a good story. If it doesn't, then it's failed. That's just what I think.
Yeah.
Right.
And even EP said that like in the year, like Sony dumped a lot of money into huge budget because I mean they really didn't have any other games to kind of push the PS4 out to the consumers. So
that was what, 2015, right? Or no?
Yeah.
2015 or 14?
I'm calling it the Order 1887 open world.
Open world. Oh man.
An open world film.
Open world film. Yeah, I mean, if that's happening, I'm probably not getting that. I mean, unless it gets like amazing reviews or something like that, then I'll consider it. But if not, nope, I'm passing on that.
And even EP said again, like it was all over substance, and it didn't pan out in this case. Oh, for sure. Like, you know what though, if I may say, like gameplay wise, like the shooting mechanics were on point. But I felt like it was just about the detail about the game, and it was really good. But the problem was like there's not enough color, very grainy. But I guess it was the type of story that they were going for. The main issue of the game, I think the main reason why it turned out not as good is because there was barely, as a player, there was no like you almost had no control. You're watching a
Mm,
6-hour movie, and I think
yeah.
that's the biggest issue that the game had: not enough gameplay control.
Yeah, I mean, like the shooting mechanics, they were pretty good, but the gameplay for it was not fun to me, at
Yeah,
least.
yeah,
Like what they did with the shooting mechanics was just not fun.
yeah. I mean, all you're doing really, like when it comes to gameplay, is shooting. That's all you
Mm,
do. Either
yeah.
you shoot, or you moved from point A to point
Mm,
B, or you pick stuff up. I gotta say, like I enjoyed like flipping over items.
yeah.
I don't know. It just
Okay.
looked cool.
You like collecting those newspapers?
Yeah.
I hated that, man.
Worth it for the trophy though.
Oh man.
And yeah, it seemed like a mechanically sound game, but the developers just didn't know how to apply what they knew to make an actual game. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
okay, I will say this though. Like, I mean, you know, the whole like game, like films as games, whatever. Like, I don't have a problem with that. I love Heavy Rain. Like,
Mm,
it's an amazing game, right? That's one of those like interactive movie styled games. But you know why I loved it? It's because the story was great. I loved the story, the characters, and everything. I didn't care about any of that in the Order 1886. It was all of that I thought was bad for the Order, right? So
mm,
it's like if you're gonna go that route and make one of those entirely story focused games, you need to you need to make sure the story is really good, right? It has to be
yeah.
worth it. Like if you're gonna sacrifice gameplay for it, right? So yeah, I mean, just like Randy said, interactive games usually have enough variety in decision making that makes it still an actual game. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Okay, I don't want to get into a rant about the Order 1886.
Yeah.
We'll save that. We'll save that when Order 1887 is announced, and I'll tell you guys again in detail why why I probably won't be interested in it. But who knows? They could always change my mind, right? We'll see.
Yeah.
Um. Okay. We kind of went a little over time with this podcast. But yeah, we covered a lot of different things, a lot of Amy Hennig stuff. Sorry, we had a bit of a rough start as well to this because
That's okay.
I forgot to edit the stream title and all that stuff. But yeah, we covered a lot of stuff by Amy Hennig, a couple of different articles on emotional toll of video games, and CD Projekt Red on their comment about monetization. And then we discussed a lot about God of War, the changes we're seeing compared to the previous games, where we think
Mm,
the story will go. So all in all, good discussion.
yeah.
Um, so so yeah, yeah, you wanna do an outro or like tell people about your channel?
Sure.
What are
It's
you playing right now? What can they
so
expect to
the
watch you stream?
man. Well, not really the man, the myth, the legend. Just an average buck. Z's twitching. That's my username on the top right.
Mm,
I mean, right now I'm currently the game's pretty heavy in terms of controversy in towards the media and the Metal Gear, fan base. I'm
mm,
enjoying it though. I like it. I also play Uncharted like multiplayer. Haven't been playing that much because of Metal Gear Survive, but I just had a cousin who purchased Titanfall 2, so myself and two other friends are gonna hop on that probably right after this podcast. But yeah,
mm.
those are the three games I'm gonna be playing right now: Metal Gear Survive, Uncharted, and Titanfall 2.
And I just want to take a minute to say this. You know, definitely go follow this guy on his channel. Like
Oh,
when it comes to all of the like the people I know, my friends that are streamers, myself included and stuff. This guy has great skills when it comes to streaming. He's so good at interacting with his audience. Um, like he makes the gameplay very entertaining. Like he'll be playing a game like you might not even like care much about, right? But you'll get an entertaining experience out of it. And
man.
yeah, I mean, like I said, like if among the people I know, if there's anyone that deserves success on these platforms, Twitch, YouTube, it's this guy. So,
Oh man.
hashtag this guy. Go follow him. Okay. Go follow him. Show him some love. See, even Randy says it was great tuning in last night. See.
Aw, thanks, guys.
So this guy, he's nearing 100 followers. He's just a new affiliate. Just got affiliated last week? 2 weeks, something like that.
I think 2 weeks. Yeah.
2 weeks, yeah. So he's a new affiliate to Twitch. And yeah, he's at 70 followers, I believe. So get him to 100, get him to 200. Keep it going.
That's awesome.
All that good stuff. As for me, if you're watching on YouTube, follow my Twitch channel. If you're watching this right now on stream, go subscribe to my YouTube. If you're subscribing both, good job. Anyways,
your life is forever and eternally blessed.
There you go. Yeah. I'll have Z's link in the description for the YouTube video, so go check it out there if you want to go see his channel. But yeah, guys, that is gonna be it for episode 3 of A Podcast Remastered. Episode 4, I'm not entirely sure when we will have it. Also, speaking of that, if you guys have any suggestions for things you want us to discuss, either message him or myself, anywhere, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, anywhere. Let us know if there's some things you want us to discuss for the next episode, and we'll take it all into consideration. Randy, if you missed most of it, I will upload it to YouTube soon, hopefully. I have to do some editing first, so be sure to check it out there. But yeah, that's going to be it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. You guys take care, and we'll see you in the next one.